And coming up in the third fight of the night, we've got a fantastic matchup between Kang and John Castaneda. Uh, Kang now 8-3 in the UFC, and it's been an interesting run that I'll get into it in a second. John Castaneda 20-6, 3-2 in the UFC, and his has been a little more odd. So to get into Kang, he's been in the UFC now for over a decade. He debuted back in 2013, and he's had a weird run. 8-3, and in 10 years is only about a fight a year, a little bit more than a fight a year. So he's gone through some injury issues, as has Castaneda. But really, what it comes down to for Kang is that he needs to be able to close the distance in this fight. His boxing continues to improve, but will be a significant disadvantage in this fight. But really, it's his wrestling that can get it done. And to his record at that 8-3, it's not that impressive. His best win to date is Christian Canones in his last fight, but otherwise, I mean, he's lost to some questionable guys, and he's had 4 split decisions in his 11 fights. So a lot of close fights on the feet, on the ground, where he might not be winning that decisively on the feet, and it might be top control over damage. So questionable scorecards. Castaneda, the opposite, a very up and down career, some low output. He's got a background in wrestling, so should be able to defend it pretty well, moves well on the feet, and is very well rounded. The boxing range is where he might struggle. He's got good strikes, but he really likes to use it either full range or in close. So some decent little aspects in this fight that could end up playing well together. Andy, how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, so to your point, like I know that like you weren't super high on Kang's resume. I agree. It's not the most impressive resume for someone who is 8-3 in the UFC that I've seen before. However, I think that when you look at Castaneda's, whenever he's fought anybody that's kind of worth a damn, in my opinion. So you look at, like, he lost to Nathaniel Wood. He also lost to Daniel Santos. He's got wins over Eddie Wineland, Miles Johns, and then my boy Tajik Gafarov, who we previewed on the UFC 294 card. Those wins don't pop out to me as much as the losses do in terms of resume. Whereas for Kang, like, I feel like Kang is kind of that name that pops up a little bit more on the resume just because of his tenure with the UFC. He's got a lot more experience, and it's very interesting to me that he's stuck with the UFC in the bantamweight division for so long. You don't see a lot of 36-year-olds weighing it at 135 pounds. That is pretty difficult. I don't think I could even do that at 27 years old myself. So, but for me, I like the length and the strength, not to rhyme there, that Kang offers against Castaneda, where he is going to have a great opportunity with his skill set, as well as it's going to be interesting to see Castaneda match up against him, where I feel like he's going to have opportunities to bust him up, but Kang has proven he has a nice chin. I mean, he's come down with 4 subs and 4 decisions in his 8 UFC wins. And I believe that he has never been, and all 3 of his losses in the UFC were by decision. So he's never been knocked out or submitted in the UFC. And I don't think that's going to change on Saturday night either. Really like the value that we're getting here with Kang. And I do think that the more tactical approach that he's going to bring to the table, despite the age difference, as well as despite the camp change where Castaneda, he's got a new boxing coach now. He's training in Minnesota now too. So a little bit different, a little bit colder place for him. But I think too, like, just with what Kang offers from experience, and this is going to be a theme that you see from me in this card in some spots, I'm going to lean with experience a lot this weekend. And that means I'm going to be going with Kang as my winner for the pick, as well as I'm going to be taking Kang money line at plus 130. I'm doing that for 3/4 of a unit. Found that line on Caesars. What do you have?
I'm right there with you on Kang, and viewers, we're not going to agree on every fight here, but and I guess we didn't in the last fight, so that's a fault. That's a statement. But I've got Kang in this fight, and really what it comes down to me is that throughout his UFC career, while he's not dominant in any area, he finds what his opponent is terrible at, and then just abuses it for the rest of the fight. He will just continue to hammer it home, and Castaneda's got a couple holes. If he can get into that boxing range, close down some of the kicks from Castaneda, which he very well can, then I see him having some success. He's shown that he is the dog in him, and so I really like that. Kang is increasingly, he's increasing as an underdog, where he was plus 115 yesterday. He's up to plus 125 in some spots. And so it might be worth waiting on Kang. But for the sake of the podcast, I'm going to go ahead and lock it in at plus 123 is what I've got it at. I don't know if you can get a better number, Andy. But I've got Kang in this fight as well. The total is set to 2.5, but the over is at minus 245. So they think it's going to go to decision with two very durable fighters. I'm not opposed to that, but I'm not going to bet that. Just give me Kang for one full unit at plus 123. Andy, you also have Kang plus 130. Wonderful.
Yeah, on Caesars.
Kang at plus 130 at Caesars. And Andy, are you taking that for a full unit as well?
I'm going 3/4 of a unit on this one, so you'll get close to a full unit win if it hits.
Wonderful. All right. Well, both of us have Kang, and we will see you in the next matchup for Mark Madsen versus Jerry Gordon.